Crime Curious is a true crime podcast that takes an in-depth look into real cases through the lens of a trained investigator and former prosecutor turned judge.
If you are sensitive to expletives, anatomical descriptions, and accurate descriptions of crime scenes, this podcast may not be suitable for you.
Welcome to Crime Curious. I'm Charnell.
I'm Megan.
And Brain Beth Jason.
Hey guys. There's our Gregory. The good luck is all started. Oh, just clicking her mouse against the microphone stand. We have so much weird crap. I love it.
We really do.
In the studio.
I love all of it though.
Are you guys ready for... No.
Come on.
We're not.
I didn't actually do it. I just ran my tongue over the
other one.
outside of it.
The pig.
She licked your duck pig.
I didn't lick it.
That one's hers. She can lick it as much as she wants.
But I didn't. I just stuck my tongue out.
This whole time we're just ignoring Megan protesting, saying she didn't.
She did.
No, you did. Anyway, you guys ready for a West Yorkshire case today?
Sure.
Okay.
Where is it?
We are in the...
What's that?
Is that England?
Is it pudding?
We are in Ossett. It's a market town near the city of Wakefield.
I'm sure you pronounced all of those wrong.
I did. No, I pronounced them right. Screw you. I quit.
If not, we'll hear all about it.
Yeah, no kidding. It's in the English country of West Yorkshire. And the crime that we're going to talk about today, which is the vicious death of a woman in her home by her demonically possessed husband, it's just not the kind of crime that this area is accustomed to, guys.
A demon possession?
Yeah, I'm bringing you some
this
demons.
Verified. There was a demon. Yeah. She's got the demons in her.
No, not she. He.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Strap in.
And
strap on.
I thought
Let's
all demonic...
I'm still waiting for...
What?
I'm waiting for more information.
To be
I
punked?
just thought all demonic possessions were of women.
No.
That's
Where
just
would
when
you
they're
think
menstruating.
that?
Wow.
That's what they used to think.
Jason, don't hold me accountable for the way that men used to think and still do.
I'm going to be honest. Sometimes I wonder also.
That's because you raised girls.
I have all
boys.
girls. No, you know when the demon's there.
Listen, I raised all boys. I can tell you that it's definitely true for boys too.
Okay. When they're on their man period?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Anyway, Ossett is a district of Havercroft, which is where the Taylor family called their home in 1974. The family consisted of 31-year-old Michael Taylor, his wife Christine, their 5 children, and the family dog. Michael in particular...
This is foreshadowing. She said there was a dog for a reason. Something bad's going to happen.
Michael in particular, carrying on, was described. He wasn't prescribed. He was described.
He should have been prescribed.
He definitely should have been prescribed. But he was described by those who knew him as mild-mannered, kind, and a loving father and husband. The family was regarded as happy and seemingly normal by societal standards. It was said at this time that Michael Taylor did have some mild depression because he had suffered a severe dilapidating back injury years before that left him unable to hold steady, regular, long-term work due to the chronic pain. So it was not described as if it is severe depression, anything like that. It was just mild. He would have his ups and downs based on, hit my computer.
He had some blues. He was sitting home and he was injured and he couldn't work
based
anymore.
on where he was in his chronic pain. Because he did work. It was just on and off from this chronic pain.
Seasonal depression.
I know. Today's a very rainy Sunday in the studio. I definitely felt it when I walked outside.
It was an easy day to just stay in bed today or on the couch.
But here we are, grinding away.
In our sweatpants.
Yep. Like many towns in West Yorkshire, Ossett was a deeply religious town, but the Taylors were not considered devout by any means. They would attend church, but it was not on a regular basis like many others in the area.
We call those creasters. They go on Christmas and Easter.
Creasters, yeah.
I feel seen.
Me too.
A friend of the family named Barbara Wardman saw Michael's bouts of depression as something that could be eased with some spiritual interventions. So she decided to interject without being asked and introduced Michael to a church group called the Gauber Christian Fellowship Group, which was led by 21-year-old pastor Marie Robinson. Okay?
What's going to happen with Marie?
With a 21-year-old pastor, what could go wrong?
I just feel like...
I have a list already.
Yeah, is the first one sex? Yeah. Is that the first thing on your list?
Yeah.
It is on mine too.
Okay, good.
Well, just sit back, friends. Remember, Michael was not previously really religious, but all of a sudden he seemed to fall under the spell of Marie Robinson, who was described as being very charming, convincing, and full of charisma. Michael attended all the meetings that the group held, learned all of their practices, and felt like a member.
So this church just got a lot more exciting for Michael.
It did. Suddenly he is ready to have the Holy Spirit within him. Mm-hmm. Y'all just have to know that Jason stepped away from the mic and had to whisper, is this a general audience episode? Because he's going to censor himself more than if it was a Patreon
and
episode.
I feel like knowing what you might have just been about to say, thank you. Thank you for the censor.
Thank you for not getting us sued.
I
Appreciate
had
it.
an immediate reaction. I was like, ooh, we should pause that.
Yeah. So this congregation's practices included the power of God to exorcise people of their sins. They spoke in tongues. They did a lot of crosses, touching you with the cross, making the cross the crucifixion
I've been in
symbol
this church.
at you, all of those things. Michael was spending a lot of time. I didn't mean crucifixion symbol. I meant the sign of the cross. It's all the same. What I'm saying. Michael was spending a lot of time, even to the point where some started to consider him a little bit of an obsessive amount of time with Pastor Marie Robinson, and even in ritual services. The two even had private rituals that would last all through the night, with Michael and Marie Robinson, quote, making the sign of the cross at each other to ward off evil power of the full moon, end quote.
They were
Jason,
ridding each other
down.
of demons.
Bear down, my friend.
I have never seen the sign of the cross made like he just made.
No, usually people just use one finger. They don't cup their whole hand like that. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways, but I've never seen it in that jerking motion. It did not take long for the congregation to feel that Michael had become pretty obsessed with his 10-year younger than him pastor, Marie Robinson.
Well, she had a lot to offer.
She really
Spiritually.
did. Spiritually, of course. Yes. Nothing like exercising your demons with a chick 10 years younger than you. Just ask my husband. Anyway, for
I'm sure
those
you guys do a lot of praying together.
We do.
Well, one person's yelling, oh, God.
We pray a lot. It's fine. For those of you that don't know, I am a decade younger than my husband. That was not like a shoddy,
12.
stab at him. 11 most of the time. There's 3 months out of the year we're 12 years apart between birthdays. It's fine, Jason. This sudden obsession and new spiritual beliefs, well, it changes who Michael is towards his family at home. Probably also his obsession with the 21-year-old pastor, I'd have to think. Not only is he spending less time at his home, obviously, but when he is home, he's in a foul mood. Although he did have mild bouts of depression before, he had always maintained an easygoing and peaceful character until now. Now he was argumentative, irritable, and moody. The biggest change in behavior, though, was to his wife, Christine. And as you can imagine, if the congregation is noticing Michael's infatuation with Marie, then his wife most certainly is also noticing this. And Christine's at a loss of what to do because with Michael being so moody and unapproachable at home, she decides maybe the best time to confront him about his infatuation with Marie is during a service.
Really? Mm-hmm. That's when she thought it would be best?
Yes. And you should know that a lot of these services happened in their homes, like in the church group members' homes.
Is this a real church?
Well, it is. Well,
I mean,
it
anything's
is
a church if you have members.
It
Okay.
is, yes.
I could start
You know, there's
my
a
own
separation.
church.
You
You
know,
should.
there's a separation of
Should
church
not.
and state. So you have.
But was there in England? Not so much.
You have the
In the
right
70s?
to have. They are recognized. Yeah.
And they were organizing often in people's homes. So this is
they
where
were.
the confrontation. You know, when you say confrontation in church, I'm thinking, you know, right in the middle of the Baptist
Like
church,
they're just
running
sitting in
down
the
the
back,
aisle, and
like,
she
by
comes
the
in and
way.
says, "We need to have a talk, Pastor."
No. What's going on is they're actually in their own home with the congregation, and Michael and Marie go upstairs at Michael's prompting for a private session. Okay, Christine has not confronted them yet, but they they come down. Okay, and-
Disheveled.
well, no. Hold on. They come downstairs. Michael returns to the living room and he proclaims that there had been a victory for the Lord regarding whatever had just taken place upstairs. Do you want to know what I put in my notes? Wait here for Megan and Jason's interjections.
I made a motion instead.
It's in my actual notes.
I
There's
feel
no
like
way you
Michael
guys don't have comments about that.
Completed something.
No,
Something came to completion.
it's not what you think.
Oh, really?
What had really happened?
He found the spot?
And he felt the need to come down and celebrate with the rest of the group.
Right.
A victory for the Lord. I finally found the clitoris. He has led me.
It is a small miracle.
Oh, it sure is. It sure is, my friend. But really what had happened was that Michael had expressed his feelings towards Marie, and she had rejected him. Okay?
Oh.
That's an important piece of information here.
It is.
Because,
But he was happy about this?
well, he had to come down and no, he was not.
The victory for the Lord was that he wasn't going to cheat because she said no thank you.
Very possible.
So the sanctity of marriage was upheld that day?
Once again intact. I don't know.
I think it was just a huge cover-up. Like,
Yes.
he needed to come down with some sort of response other than being angry that she wouldn't
There's a victory for the Lord.
You are
recognize his
spot on.
number.
Okay.
Yes, you are spot on, Jason. And at this point in time, so he comes down, proclaims that there's been a victory for the Lord after their private session upstairs. Marie actually knows what really happened upstairs and is like, well, that was a fucking weird way to put that, but
How
okay.
did you know that? Have you been rejected before?
And
What do you think? And then I had to go announce to the group, be like, woo, rock
was
on,
fun.
it's party time. I'm in a great fucking mood. Can't you tell?
let's
love you.
keep praying.
Right.
Oh, my wife's here. That'll make it better.
Yeah. Well, Christine decides that this is the perfect moment to confront in front of the whole congregation, however many people were there. I was not privy. I couldn't find that information, but they're, about his feelings for Marie. Now, keep in mind the timing here. She's confronting him in front of everyone right after, unbeknownst to Christine, he had just been rejected upstairs. So, what do you think might happen in this situation?
He didn't handle it very well.
He didn't, but who do you think he's going to go after?
His wife.
That is what a logical person would think.
He went after the pastor instead?
He went after Marie in front of everybody.
Really?
Yes, hold your rosary, everyone, because this is where the Dark Lord enters the scene. Michael later reflects that he felt an evil influence cast a shadow over him.
Yeah, it's anger.
Yep.
Blue balls.
I guess another
Oh, my
way.
God.
An evil influence cast a blue shadow over him. Oh, Lord.
I felt some throbbing, and I felt it to be anger or
Anger.
a spirit or my testicles.
It's all very similar.
And then, compelled by this force, he vented a sudden fury on Marie Robinson.
So he started freaking out and screaming at her
Oh, he
to
didn't-
start.
He didn't just lash out at her. He attacked her.
So this was a physical assault.
Physical assault to the point where several other members of the congregation had to physically restrain him, fearing that he would seriously hurt himself or someone else. Later, we do hear testimony of Marie reflecting on this attack. This is a quote from her. I suddenly glanced at Mike and his whole features changed. He looked almost bestial. He kept looking at me, and there was a really wild look in his eyes. I started screaming at him out of fear. I started speaking in tongues. Mike also screamed at me in tongues. I was on the verge of death, and I seemed to come to my senses. I knew that only the name of Jesus would save me, and I started saying over and over again, Jesus, Jesus. When Christine, heard me calling on the name of Jesus, she started saying it too. Jesus, Jesus.
And the Academy Award goes to...
She says, and I believe firmly that it was only by calling on his name that I was not killed. End quote.
Or the other people in the room that stopped him from attacking you.
Possibly. Because they had Jesus working through them, I'm sure of it.
Well, most of us do.
Yes.
Who is going to allow
Except
a person
for maybe
to be
Michael,
murdered in front of you?
That might be the Dark Lord. But
You mean
yeah.
Voldemort?
Yes. It was Voldemort.
He who must not be named.
She said Dark Lord. That's
let's-
all I could think of.
Exactly.
Let's not say it a third time because we don't know. It might be like Beetlejuice. He could show up. After the attack.
I've had worse days.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes in our line of work, I feel like, I have come into contact with plenty of Voldemorts. After the attack, Michael said that he was so overwhelmed by evil that he has no memory of this. Convenient. Okay. The congregation did not trust him and becomes kind of a cause of concern for them. Like they realize he's a loose cannon in the church.
There have been real instances where people are in such a state of rage that they do actually black out or have moments where they can't remember exactly what happened. That's true. It's diagnosable.
Is that a legitimate legal defense?
No.
Okay.
No. But it does happen. Yeah.
It's mitigating for some
Sure.
juries and in terms of sentences. And what could happen is there could be a finding that you're not either criminally responsible or that you were insane at the actual time that the assault happened.
Oh, I see Jason's face. He doesn't
No,
like
you don't
that
have
at
to like
all.
it. I don't like it, but
Can it be proven?
yeah.
Like, I'm sorry I beat the shit out of you. I don't remember doing that. I was so mad.
Well, that isn't going to work. You're going to have an expert come in testimony-wise and indicate what was happening, what the diagnosis was, and that
Yeah.
it's possible.
After you've been diagnosed.
People have been acquitted by juries who believed that particular area of expertise. And I'm not saying you have to, because I think there are a lot of people's jurors who would be like, bullshit.
They're lucky I wasn't on that jury.
Okay, good to know, Jason. You just got yourself excused by every defense attorney around.
Awesome.
Perfect.
they're
What else
listening.
can I say to get me kicked off a jury?
Come
Oh, I
on,
got
man.
I got a list of that too. That's
Yeah,
a
you
brain bath
guys.
episode, maybe.
I'm sorry, Judge Megan. We will uphold our civic duty to sit on a jury if called
As
upon.
you all should.
Yes. What button were you trying to push, my friend?
Why are they not working?
Oh, because
She
we
muted
turned.
them.
I muted all the sounds. I'm sorry.
Ruined my joke.
You've been a little rogue with pushing the buttons, lady. Actually, I did that on accident. I didn't know I muted shit.
It was when you were muting me. What? It was when you were muting
I would
me.
never.
did it. She's lying.
Okay. So here's the thing. The congregation is worried about him, but they're not going to kick him out. Okay? Instead, several local ministers become involved, and they decide that the only reasonable explanation here is that Michael is possessed by demonic forces. Obvi, right? I mean, what other logical explanation could there be? There are none.
He's a
Shut your
dickhead.
mouth.
I was just going to say, Michael is an asshole.
Sure
he
is.
has an anger management issue and some mental illness, but that doesn't give you an excuse to assault your pastor because she said no to your pee-pee.
No, it's the demons. It is the demons.
Oh, God.
But what are they going to do about it? Well, here's
Exorcise
the thing.
them?
Yeah, the local vicar. It's always a vicar. He
I've
decides.
read some good stories about local vicars before.
All I can think of is the episode of
Friends
Friends
with Joey and Rachel. You got porn.
I'm not ashamed. I don't know what a vicar is.
It's another type of
Catholic
pastor.
religious
Yes,
person.
Yes.
Never heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Pretty well stooped.
Well, it's the vicar that decides that the only obvious solution here is an exorcism. And yes, it may be controversial. Yes, we do like to only use it in extreme circumstances. But if a man's willing to attack his beautiful, young, pastor who just turned him down.
This was the 1970s, right?
Yes,
Okay.
1974.
Not like the 1770s.
No.
Okay.
Sounds like something from
Yeah.
even medieval times. And it gets worse. So, as I said
Does
earlier,
it?
strap in and strap on and grab those rosemaries, guys. The rosemaries.
It's all the Rosemaries.
And the
Not
Nobody laughed at that.
I
the
missed
time-
because I was thinking rosaries. I corrected it in my own brain until I realized you said an
I said
herb.
it on purpose.
Well, I was just
Oh,
looking.
Jesus, you guys.
I was looking up
We're praying a lot in this episode.
that a vicar can refer to a priest in charge of a parish, particularly the Church of England and some related denominations. So I am finding it interesting that they're basically going to this normalized Christian denomination to the vicar when they clearly are practicing something a little bit different than normal.
Well, you have to understand, this is a Christian fellowship group.
It is.
So they are
like
parts,
Plymouth.
but they're parts of many churches in the area because it is a fellowship group. Okay, so they're having congregations in their houses, but also in these other churches as well. Yeah,
So they've gone back now and said, we need a real priest. We need the vicar's help on this
a
one.
member of our fellowship group is struggling, and so this
He's
is what he's
possessed
done.
by Voldemort.
And so what are we going to do? We are going to cast away those demons. And who we have do this is Father Peter Vincent, of course. Does it get any more Catholic than that?
Hello, Pete.
It does not. And Reverend Raymond Smith. They were called in to complete this exorcism.
Pete and Ray Ray.
They're fucking Ghostbusters.
Pete and Ray Ray came in.
They
yeah.
did.
Venkman.
Yeah.
Listen, as if
Oh my God. They are Pete and Ray.
Ray Stantz and Peter
And
Venkman.
Peter Venkman. They are
Oh
Ghostbusters.
my God, I didn't catch that when I was writing this.
Mind blown.
Wow. Is this where they came up with their names?
Probably not.
This was a 1974 case.
But if they did, the movie industry is smarter than I gave them credit for
Yes.
in the early 80s.
If a priest named Egon comes in, I'm going to lose it.
Absolutely. 100%.
So anyway, I mean, I feel like exorcisms are pretty, bowel-inducing scary. Like, if I saw one, I'm probably crapping myself.
I'm going to watch.
Yeah.
Not you crap yourself.
Oh.
I'm going to watch The Exorcism. I'm very intrigued
This?
and find little fear in it. I would want to participate.
No,
I
not
would,
me.
I would watch from across the room.
Listen,
I
In
don't
the
want-
corner?
I don't want to be hands.
With a box of tissues.
I don't want to be hands on.
Again?
Depends. Listen.
Jesus. I keep saying that. Jesus. I keep calling on him or her.
Listen, Linda Blair had something going on.
She sure did.
Oh, gosh. I'm a spiritual being and actually do energy and spiritual work, and I wouldn't attend an exorcism.
I would.
For the record, I've never masturbated to an exorcism.
Oh, good.
In
Thank
case
you for
anyone
putting
was
that
curious.
out there.
Is it on your list,
Just
though?
to the normal
It's
things.
not even on my list.
Only to the normal.
Normal
I mean,
to the
it
normal.
wasn't before today.
Right. Okay. So these two decide that, yes, we're going to exorcise these demons. But you want to know when we're going to do it? We got to do it at midnight.
Yeah, that's
you
it.
know.
When the evil spirits come out.
Witching hour.
That's 3 a.m. But
That was impressive and quick. That was Jeopardy level knowledge that she just gave us.
just saying. This happened October 5th, 1974 at midnight at St. Thames. Thames? St. Thames.
Thames.
Thames. I don't
The
know.
Thames.
Whatever.
River.
It's a church in Barnsley. Okay? It's where this exorcism is going to take place at the stroke of 12, my friends.
She said stroke.
That night in front of the congregation, I didn't even know that we were going to have masturbatory conversation.
For the record,
And
I didn't start that.
I wrote stroke right in my notes there. That's weird.
Well, think of how this whole thing started.
Yes.
There have been weird sexual connotations to this whole thing.
Your Honor started the masturbatory.
I don't want to play this game anymore.
Also, get me off this ride.
Literally. Don't even.
Now that Jason has been properly scolded, I will continue with the case. That night, in front of the congregation of the Christian Fellowship group, because of course they're all going to attend like it's a spectator sport, the two ministers begin the spiritual exorcism ritual. It went through the night and into the next morning. It was reported by several sources that within the later trial that went as soon as the exorcism started. Michael went into uncontrollable convulsions and fits. He was scratching, biting, screaming, spitting, so much so that he had to be tied to the floor, forcibly tied to the floor. Over the next 8 hours, Michael had crucifixes shoved into his mouth and was being doused with holy water over and over again. During the entire ritual, Michael was growling and snapping at anyone who came near him. Imagine doing that for 8 hours. The priests told the congregation that they had managed to determine that there were 40 demons inhabiting Michael's body.
That's a lot.
This is a lot. No wonder why he was an asshole.
It is crowded. I figured there'd just be one.
No, they were very crowded in that meat soup.
That's above capacity.
It is. It's definitely over capacity. But hold on. These demons are carrying traits, you guys. This is very important. These demons that they were able to successfully exorcise, they were carrying traits of incest, bestiality, blasphemy.
Well, we all have that one.
Lewdness.
And that one.
This one is going to be your favorite. Hearsay.
Oh, no. Not that.
Hearsay.
Not an out-of-court statement made to show the truth of the matter asserted.
Yes. That hearsay.
Not that.
That hearsay demon.
The demon of
the
hearsay.
demon of hearsay. Now, when I
her every
redact, when I correct reports, that's what I'm going to do. You inserted the demon of hearsay. Get that out.
Yeah.
I love it.
Then, misogynism.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know lots of people with that demon.
And here is where we are all going to recognize our own demons, everyone. The demon of carnal knowledge.
Oh, no.
I know what that means.
Yeah, we were basically talking about it earlier. This whole episode has been carnal knowledge.
I think if you're going to come up with some demons, like that's probably like the main one. And where is the demon of anger?
Hold on.
There are 40.
Listen, I don't know if this is going to come to a surprise, but those 40 demons did not appreciate the spiritual ass kicking that they were getting. And each one was said to have been drug out of Michael's body, kicking and screaming. The priests were exhausted, and they had to stop the ritual after about 8 hours. By 8 a.m. on October 6, 1974, they called a stop on the war of demons wearing Michael's skin suit, and they decided that they would finish at another time, which was not normal. This was not typical practice.
Can you take a break
in an
exorcism?
Nintendo. You don't just hit pause.
They did, and they acknowledged that there were some very stubborn gremlin demons in there. They didn't say gremlins. That was my own insertion. Those demons were the demons of insanity, anger, and murder.
Well, I think they should have got rid of those first.
Listen,
Right.
I literally wrote in my notes that I'm
If
I'm
there's an
not a
order,
priest.
You got this horny hearsay and demon. I
Right.
think that's better than the murderous one.
Why
Anger,
are we
murder.
not triaging the demons that we're focusing on? Because I feel like we could have left hearsay, carnal knowledge.
I don't think they just line up and identify themselves.
You're right.
Not
Maybe
really sure how it
the
works.
shadows
They're
are
not picking teams for dodgeball.
the shadows are just emerging,
I don't.
and then they name
pretend
them
to know.
afterward.
I don't know. I don't pretend
State
to
your
know.
name as they're on their way out.
Like, I just feel like hearsay, lewdness, and carnal knowledge. They probably could have left those and then
That just made him a good time at the bar.
Well, and then the one's like, I'm hearsay. And they're like, are you though?
Yeah. Who you spread rumors
We're supposed to
about?
just believe you?
right. Uh-huh.
That's right.
Like, hey,
We're supposed to
here-
just believe you. Like I believe you.
you know
It's
what?
funny.
Hearsay's in there going, I heard from lewdness that anger, murder, and insanity are still lingering in there, holding on. And they're like,
Exactly.
yeah, we don't believe you, hearsay. Okay. Anyway.
It was also London in the 70s.
Okay, but you said that really wasn't that long ago. You guys were born in the 70s.
I know, and
I was an infant.
I know, but this is
Wasn't like-
asinine.
Wasn't like punk rock really big in London in the 70s?
Yes. Well, punk was emerging in the 70s.
That has
They were-
nothing to do with, I mean, these are all normal spiritual
I'm just
practices.
saying.
Guys, this stuff still happens today.
Lewdness in London was not a rarity.
abnormal in the 70s.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
But amongst the church,
no, not
in
so
the
much.
church, you should not have carnal knowledge.
Right, because
They don't
no
wanna-
one in the church ever did anything
So
inappropriate.
what they do with
How would they
Michael
reproduce?
when they hit pause on the game?
They told him
Like,
and
just
his
hang
wife,
tight, we'll be back.
The Michael suit. Pause.
they told Michael and Christine to go home
Yeah.
and rest up because in the following evening, they're going to continue. They're going to go after insanity, anger, and murder.
You know what Michael's doing? Michael's like, hey, they think that they left the murder one in me, so I get to go home and get a blanket excuse for everything that I do.
They just set it up so perfectly.
I would like to see and or hear or know what his state was during and after. And they're like, okay, we're going to stop now because we're all tired.
I'm about to tell you, if you'd stop asking questions, I'd get to it.
We're going to discuss this later. Okay.
But he was pretty tired from thrashing around on a wooden floor, tied to a wooden floor all night, letting go of all of his demons.
It can be rough.
Letting go of, right, lewdness and hearsay, carnal knowledge. He really wanted to keep that carnal knowledge. I mean, really. Interestingly, a minister's wife that was in company, named Margaret Smith, said later that she had actually received a warning in her mind from what she believed was God, saying that the demon of murder was going to escape from Michael and kill Christine.
That's just called a gut instinct, sweetheart, and you should always follow those.
Yeah, you don't just keep that to yourself.
Yeah.
She actually didn't. She pleaded with the 2 priests to complete the exorcism, but they dismissed her warnings and instead told Christine and Michael to go home and rest and prepare for the final part of the exorcism, which would be performed. In other words, they's tired. They want to go get their coffee and donuts and go night-nights.
Tea and crumpets. We're in England.
Right.
Be respectful.
Oh, so sorry. My bad. Hold on. Where's my rosary?
I actually might have just said something offensive, Charnell. I don't know. So
regardless, they were tired, and so they stopped it.
They made up new rules.
Maybe, Christina? Mm-hmm. Perhaps she should have, I don't know, stayed with a friend. Did they have hotels? Could Michael have gotten a hotel?
Well, yeah, but he
Or stayed at the church. Here, sleep in the spare room at the church.
In a coffin.
There were a lot of, this was piss poor planning.
It really was.
Well, just a couple hours later, on October 6th, at 9:45 in the morning, Officer Ian Walker was in his patrol car, just patrolling the streets of Ossett, and sees a man stumbling around, smack dab in the middle of the street, buck-ass naked.
It's the only way to wander.
But, sure, if you're going to stumble around in the middle of the street.
If you want people to think that you're crazy and possessed by demons, you should be naked in the street.
Absolutely.
Not only naked, he's covered head to toe in blood.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Also what I would expect.
As soon as Officer Walker stops the car and approaches the man, he watches as the man curls into the fetal position while ranting and screaming, "It is the blood of Satan!" over and over and over. A crowd of people naturally are drawn to this bizarre sight, and some of them recognize the man, of course, Michael Taylor. The ranting and screaming about Satan did not stop, even after officers called an ambulance. At this point, they're trying to see if this man has hurt himself or someone else, but one thing's for sure, him being covered with blood it's someone's. It's his or but they cannot get him to say anything but that statement over and over again. He is screaming and ranting about Satan this whole time.
It's not his.
Oh no. He continued screaming as the ambulance took him away to a local hospital. The crowd of onlookers who had at this point in time crowded around the ambulance told the police that the deranged man was Michael Taylor and gave Officer Walker his address. So Officer Walker goes right to the Taylor home. But when he arrives, he discovers there's already a police car there. A call had been placed many moments before because of things that neighbors had heard in the home. Officer Walker was walking up to the house when a detective, at the same time that a detective happens to be coming out of the house. The reason, and the detective is like running and bending over and vomiting. And this is a quote. "You don't want to see this one, son. I've seen nothing like it before, and I've seen a few. It's the wife. He's ripped at her, son. It's a right mess in there. There's not much of her left. You don't want to see it." End quote.
So he's dismembering her?
No.
Skinned her.
The sight of the inspector losing his breakfast and giving him a warning did not stop Officer Walker. And what he saw was as bad as the detective had described. And this is where I'm going to give you a trigger alert. The front living room was total chaos. Everything was destroyed. Anything that Officer Walker laid eyes on was destroyed and covered in blood. Every surface of the room. There was flesh. There was pulp and brain matter. On the floor of the living room lay the bodies of Christine Taylor and the family dog. Both
nailed it.
Nearly unrecognizable.
He beat her to a pulp is what happened then. He like literally bashed her skull in and...
No, he sure didn't. There was no murder weapon aside from Michael's own bare hands. He had not only strangled Christine, but he had scratched off her flesh all the way down to the bone. He had literally torn off her face. He had gouged out her eyes. He had ripped out her tongue with his bare hands. And the rest of her body down to the bone. She was unrecognizable. According to the autopsy, Christine died of shock and asphyxiation on her own blood quickly. But then Michael turned his attention to the dog. He strangled the dog, ripped it limb from limb. He had torn its legs from its body, and hair, and teeth, and eyes from the skull. And then he left the house screaming and was found by Officer Walker a short time later. It was described as being the most horrific crime scene that any police officer had ever attended.
I'm speechless.
Yeah, it's unimaginable that someone could have that strength and anger and capability. These are the demons of murder, anger, and what was the other one that we left in there? Why can't I remember?
I don't know.
Scroll back.
I've gone blank.
I know. It's because it is
horrific.
Perhaps rage.
No, it was insanity.
Insanity.
Yeah, insanity, anger, and murder.
That
makes sense. That's what was left in him, and that is certainly what transpired not even 2 hours after leaving that exorcism. So Michael was, of course, taken into police custody from the hospital, and when interviewed some hours later, when he was deemed rational enough to talk, he was asked to try to explain what had happened. And he told the detective, Inspector Brian Smith, about the exorcism that had occurred only hours before, saying, quote, "It was a long night. They danced around me and burned my cross because that was tainted with evil. They had me in the church all night. Look at my hands. I was banging on the floor. The power was in me. I couldn't get rid of it, and neither could they. They were too late. I was compelled by a force within me to destroy everything living within the house," end quote. It's a damn good thing his kids weren't home.
Well, I was going to ask.
Where were the children?
No, they were not home, and they were then placed in the care of Christine's sister afterwards. Although Michael claimed that he could remember nothing of the actual murder, he claimed that he deeply loved his wife. And when asked by Detective Smith how he felt, he replied, "Released. I am released. It is done. The evil in her has been destroyed."
Why was she evil, Michael?
Because
she didn't try to nail the pastor.
She's what's standing in the way of him being able to be with the pastor. I mean, really.
I don't like Michael.
No. I don't like Michael or his demons.
I have no sympathy for his demons.
Nope, me neither. Michael was charged with the murder of Christine Taylor and was sent to Broadmoor Secure Hospital in Berkshire to await trial.
It's working. He got to go into a mental hospital to wait for his trial instead of jail.
He did. And
it's working.
And he spent most of his time sleeping.
It's tiring to get rid of a lot of demons and to rip a person apart with your bare hands.
And I'm sure he's probably having another bout of depression. I mean, it's just easier to escape the realities while sleeping.
Let's, for the sake of conversation, I feel.
You're using I feel statements?
Yeah.
Okay.
That we as a collective group are probably leaning more towards a mental health issue than demons in an exorcism. Well,
I think that's what mental health was up until more acceptable psychiatric studies, right?
But he didn't. His initial outburst was towards Maria.
Yes.
Marie.
Mm-hmm.
After his wife called him out.
Mm-hmm. and and Marie had rejected him directly after.
So do you think that he was playing this part of being possessed and using that as an excuse to emulsify his wife?
Yes. I think he took this all as an opportunity to go home and get rid of her.
I mean, obviously he may have had a few screws loose, to say the least, but like, what sort of extreme psychosis would be like, I'm going to do this?
And he was cognizant of it. And what type of remorse did he show? He said she was freed of her demons. This isn't a remorseful human.
Actually, what he said is, released. I am released. It is done. The evil in her has been destroyed.
Right. So he's released.
Yeah.
These are not helpful statements.
No, not at all. And I think that the priests telling him he still has insanity, anger, and murder inside of him, what a wonderful defense.
Agreed. It's a golden opportunity.
Now, and keep in mind, these 5 children have now lost their mother, father, and their beloved pet, all in one day here. So I guess if I were him, I would be sleeping the entire time when I'm, awaiting my trial too.
Well, he's in a mental hospital in the 70s, so his sleep might have been assisted.
Yeah, I imagine.
Yeah, I'm injecting you with something to lay down and take a nappy nap.
For sure, because we're sick of listening to you rant about Satan.
Right.
Michael Taylor's trial for the murder began in March 1975, and the jury was properly warned ahead of time of the evidence that they would hear would be difficult to hear. Neither prosecution nor defense denied at the trial that Michael Taylor had severe mental issues. Michael himself testified, again claiming that he had no recollection of the actual killing and that he really loved his wife and he truly had been under the control of evil supernatural forces. And that he had suspected that Christine herself had also been possessed by demons. That was it for him. That was why all of this happened. He gave no other motive or reason.
Did the dog have a demon?
Well, that's what I'm like. What? Why? Leave Fido alone. I don't know. I don't know the dog's name.
His children weren't there. My guess is when she decided to go to church service to confront him, she found a place for her kids to stay. Or after he had his reaction and was being exorcised, she found a place for them to stay.
No, remember the exorcism took place overnight.
Yeah,
So
I know.
Yeah, so it started at midnight. They needed a babysitter.
That's
so
what I
she
was
sent them
saying.
away.
So she sent them away from her house.
The exorcism happened in a church.
Yeah,
and
I know.
And so by the time they this all happened so fast. By the time they got home, I'm sure they hadn't even had a chance to go pick the kids up
Right,
from
that's
whoever
what I
was
mean.
watching
It's a good
the
thing
kids
they weren't
overnight.
there.
Yeah, absolutely. Because of his statement that everything to the police that everything he was possessed and that he had to kill everything in the house that was living.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so that's why the dog didn't have a demon. He just had to kill anything alive that was in
Because
the
of
home.
the demons that were within him.
Except for himself.
But then
apparently.
he does add on, right, exactly. And he does add on that, like almost like an afterthought, that, she had also had demons. But by the by, she also had demons in her. So, bitch gotta go. Like that was almost like an afterthought. The defense went after the fellowship group in an attempt to paint the group as fanatics that preyed on the mentally ill. So blame was also placed on the exorcism itself.
I mean, they're not wrong. As
Right.
a defense attorney, I'd go after that too.
Well, even the prosecution claimed that the ritual had taken its toll on an already mentally disturbed man, and coupled with the warped religious ideals and beliefs that the prayer group had instilled in him, these negative influences had pushed Michael over the edge into a realm of madness and murder.
So the prosecution does believe that he is mad.
They're even saying it. And actually, Mr. Ognall, who was an attorney on this case, made an impassioned personal statement during the trial that really illustrated how much responsibility that was being placed on the church from the horrific crime. This is a quote. "I am aware that it is generally regarded as improper for an advocate," that means lawyer, "to express any personal feeling or opinion about the case in which he is engaged. I am afraid I find it quite impossible to observe such constraints in this case. Let those who truly are responsible for this killing stand up. We submit that Mr. Taylor is a mere cipher. The real guilt lies elsewhere. Religion is the key. Those who have been referred to in evidence, and those clerics in particular, should be with him in spirit now in this building and each day he's incarcerated in Broadmoor, and not least on the day that he must endure the bitter reunion with his 5 motherless children." End quote. The jury found Michael Taylor not guilty of the murder of his wife by reason of insanity.
Knew it.
Deemed to be both clinically and legally insane, he was sent to Broadmoor Secure Hospital, where he would remain for 2 years, followed by another 2-year sentence at Bradford Royal Infirmary before being released back out into the world, apparently cured. The aftermath of the trial was a public outcry over the use of exorcisms within the church, and indeed, this became the last recorded exorcism to be carried out by the Anglican Church. Sorry, I lost my place. But they defended themselves through and through. Throughout the trial and in the years following it, the chief Anglican priest, who had been in charge of Michael's exorcism, Father Peter Vincent, continued to insist that Michael Taylor had indeed been inhabited by demons, and that the case had indeed been an authentic case of demonic possession. Father Vincent's career in the church was unaffected following the case, and even he seemed to be having a little consideration for a family destroyed and the horror of what happened. He would simply say, quote, God will bring good out of this in his own way, end quote. It was only Peter Vincent's partner in exorcism, the Reverend Ray Smith, that seemed to admit that the situation had not been handled well and that the exorcism had indeed failed. He was quoted saying, "If people come to me in trouble of any kind, I will try to help. I will give such comfort as I could, but I am only an ordinary human being with human failings." End quote. Now, what of Ian Walker? And we'll get to more here in a minute about Mr. Taylor, but Ian Walker, the police officer who, stumbled upon him on the road and then went into the scene. He was interviewed by several different sources throughout the years, and after his retirement, he reflected on this. Of all the incidents in which I was involved in 30 years of police work, nothing affected me like this one. The stupidity and futility of it all. The complete and utter waste of life and destruction of a family, not to mention the death and other traumas, are far beyond anything else I have ever come across. Obviously, my wife asked me questions, but there are some things that you do not take home, and this was one of them. However, within the next 24 to 48 hours, the news hit the national papers and the TV bulletins. You just bury it and get on with your own life as best you can. Before this event, I was agnostic, and now I was an atheist. End quote. I mean, It really hit him hard.
Well, yeah, I bet.
After his release from the hospital, it's reported that Michael Taylor went back to live in Ossett. Although, why? What's he have left there?
The pastor?
Maybe.
I finished the job, man.
Michael would continue to display odd behavior and to suffer bouts of depression, as well as making a total of 4 suicide attempts over the following years. Still haunted by his actions, that October morning, his suicide attempts involved cutting his wrists. He actually jumped from a bridge and was badly injured in his back and legs.
Okay, that's serious.
Mm-hmm.
That's a serious attempt.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he survived all 4 of his suicide attempts. And then he would enter the news again in July 2005 when he was arrested for sexually harassing and having inappropriate contact with an underage girl.
Well, he's been doing that.
Sure.
Yeah, but now he's 60.
Yeah. During his court hearings on these charges, Michael Taylor was said to have told the police that it was all his fault. And then he said, quote, "Am I going to Broadmoor for murdering my wife?" End quote. Taylor had spent a week in custody over the sexual assaults, and during this incarceration, the psychiatric problems that had existed in 1975 had manifested themselves once again. Upon being bailed, however, they had disappeared. His previous charges from 30 years before were deemed to have no bearing on the current case, and he was deemed to have a low to medium risk of reoffending. This led him to a relatively light sentence of a 3-year stint of community service, but with the condition of psychiatric treatment. And that is all we know about him at this point in time.
Well, he's clearly mentally ill, but
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
his symptoms seem to be convenient.
They are a little convenient, though, aren't they?
Like
I do not
they just
disagree
kind of
with
pop
that
up
assessment.
and then go away when he gets bailed.
Right. I don't
Is the
know.
overall feeling on this case across the pond is that it was a demon possession, or do they also call bullshit?
I don't know. I feel like there's probably a mixed
Well,
bag
the
over
options
here.
are really good cover up. I mean, this was his prematurely planned like whole thing. He's like,
Like
I'm gonna
Premeditated.
thank you. Stumbling on a Sunday.
It's okay.
But it was either all premeditated
Yeah.
or he has obvious severe mental health issues or he was actually fucking possessed.
Yeah.
Which is not something I personally believe in.
No,
But
no, I don't either.
that
I don't pretend to know all of the spiritual
right. I don't
things
I mean,
either, though. I mean, the world is still a mystery.
The supernatural to me it's not all or nothing to me.
Agreed.
There
No.
are pieces of it that I believe in and pieces of it that I don't.
Sure. Yeah.
I do
No,
not believe
I
in
agree.
human demonic possession. I don't personally believe in.
I also don't as well.
But I haven't
I
studied,
don't
haven't
because I
studied it either.
think it's an explanation that goes back centuries
If
for
this
people
had happened in-
confused about mental illness.
Right.
For sure.
If this was the Salem witch trials, they're like he was possessed by a demon. Be like, well, okay, that's the only explanation we got. This was 45 years ago.
Yeah.
In 1975.
Right.
49 years ago.
When we did have studies and information about mental illness.
Correct.
and
Starting to.
Now,
Starting
granted,
to.
Yeah.
we were still over medicating people
Yeah,
with
it
the
was-
wrong
right,
type of
no,
medication
It was
for
still
it.
a new science
but-
because even though we'd had people like, Freud about and studying things, there weren't really accepted necessarily diagnoses at this point. And they called them all kinds of weird things.
Yeah.
I mean,
just so you
women
know,
were
guys-
hysteria, comes
Right.
from the word hyster, as in
Ectomy.
ectomy, as in uterus, as in woman issue. So hysterical was a
Right.
mental illness used to define women.
And neither party here, you should know, was ever trying to discount his mental illness. They really weren't. I mean, not even the prosecution, because of the state
I
of the
feel like
bodies.
this particular sect in this church got a little culty. That's
yeah,
what
that
I
was my
think.
next. That's
100%.
where I was going to.
A little mob mentality.
Yeah.
They think they're exercising demons. They're just in all kinds of bad behavior to go upstairs alone and do all kinds of weird shit. And then the next thing you know, the shit hits the fan.
Right.
It was convenient.
I
Well,
agree, and that's why the
the-
defense was like going after this church.
I don't blame them.
And the prosecution wasn't disagreeing. Like, I think the prosecution had as much
Yeah.
concern about the fanatics
Agreed.
of that
The whole-
sect. Yeah.
Speaking in tongues to each other,
Mm-hmm.
which all I can think about is dinner at the end of Cape Fear. But
A lot of
Love that movie.
religions do that. I do have a brain bath for you though.
Oh, thank
Okay.
Oh,
God.
do you have one?
I don't know if mine's probably appropriate. I told you at the beginning I had one.
I need like a
I
full
don't
scrub
recollect
down.
this at all.
Do you remember me saying that I had a brain bath?
Last night or just now?
Today, before we started recording.
No.
Maybe I said it in my head.
But I,
think
also
you-
may not have been listening to you.
I always listen, and I didn't
Go
hear.
ahead,
No,
Charnell.
you go ahead.
No, mine's just a little. I said it's just a short, cute little story.
Oh, cute. Give us. We need that after this.
But it does have to do with sex.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we're
It's
done with
you
our
guys,
case.
This is just titled Senior Sex.
Oh. Okay.
A husband leans over to ask his wife, "Do you remember the first time we had sex together over 50 years ago? We went behind the village tavern where you leaned against the back fence and I made love to you." And she says, "Oh, yes, honey, I remember it well." "Okay," he says. "How about taking a stroll around there again? We can do that for old time's sake." "Oh, Jim, you old devil. That sounds like a crazy but good idea." A police officer sitting in the next booth heard their conversation and having a chuckle to himself, he thinks to himself, "I gotta go see these two old timers having sex against the fence. I'll just keep an eye on them so there's no trouble." So he follows them.
Oh no.
The elderly couple walks haltingly along, leaning on each other for support, aided by walking sticks. Finally, they get to the back of the tavern and make their way to the fence. The old lady lifts her skirt, and the old man drops his trousers. As she leans against the fence, the old man moves in. Then suddenly, they erupt into the most furious sex that the policeman has ever seen. It goes on for about 10 minutes while they're both making loud noises and moaning and screaming. Finally, they both collapse,
Oh, no.
panting on the ground. The policeman is amazed. He thinks he has learned something about life and old age that he didn't know. After some time with them laying on the ground, the old couple struggle to their feet and put their clothes back on. The policeman's still watching and thinks to himself, This is truly amazing. I've got to ask them their secret. So as they pass by him, he says, excuse me, but that was something else. You must have had a fantastic sex life together. Is there some sort of secret to this? Shaking, the old man barely able to reply, he says, well, son, 50 years ago, this wasn't an electric fence.
Yeah.
Wow.
I thought maybe that's where we were going.
I
with
knew
that.
it partway through as you started laughing
awful.
that you knew what it was. So
Farm girl over
it's
here.
actually a wholesome old joke, but I
is.
hadn't heard it in a while. And when it came up randomly, I'm like, I got to share this one.
That is cute. And also, can I just point out that people that have been married 50 years, my God, they don't have to necessarily. They depicted them like they were mostly unable.
They're probably
to
in their early 70s
For
and
sure.
perfectly capable of
Yes.
having ferocious fence sex.
Exactly. I'm like, why are we acting like being married for 50 years means that you're decrepit?
Because it was written by a 20-year-old Charnell.
That's probably true. My parents have been married for 51 and they're not even in their 70s yet. Like,
Yeah,
come on. you
That's
know?
right. Mine are close.
Yeah. Anyway, well, thank you all so much for supporting us by coming back week after week to listen. If you would like to support our work even more and get many more bonus content, then join
Many
Patreon.
more?
Many more.
Much more.
Way more.
So many mores.
Tons more.
All the
Listen,
mores.
All
you
the
know
more.
what?
All the more.
You get a bunch of shit. There's so much on there, guys.
And furthermore,
You get all of it.
you can listen to all these by going to...
The link in our show notes to join Patreon.
So never more.
Oh, we hope that you keep it curious.
And keep listening.
Jason.
Till next time.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Sorry, you were slow. It's Sunday. Ugh.
In general.
Yeah. Bye-bye.